How are you today? Pretty good? Good. Oh, I'm still here. Yeah. Still alive. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize for not being here the last 2 times, I think it was, we canceled. 2 times, yeah. I had a little motorcycle accident. So, it was on almost just over a month ago today, on the 21st of February. So I was driving near in Beitun, near 麻里村美国学校, and there was no traffic. The road was pretty empty, right? So I was going straight, and I went through a green light. It was green, and it was one of those. It was so fast. I didn't even realize I hit something. But a car coming towards me, coming the other direction, he took a left turn in front of me at the green light. So he turned left right in front of me, and I hit him and went flying. So I hit him really hard. So in fact, so hard I was wearing a pair of boots, right? What do they call that? 牛仔 shoe, 鞋, right? And it actually pulled one of my boots off. And so I after I stopped rolling, I looked down at my right knee, and there was a huge hole in my knee. And the skin had been ripped off, about 12公分. And so it was very funny because the ambulance, the 救护车, pulled up, and the 2 guys jumped out, and they said, 有没有地方痛? And then they saw my knee, and they're like, oh. So, yeah. So anyhow, I went to China Medical University Hospital, and I thought maybe, that perhaps they could just clean it up and sew it up. I knew they had to sew it up, stitch it up. But the doctors came down, and they looked at it 2 times, I think, and they were like, they said too much, they kept saying 小石头 inside. So they said this has to have a surgery, 开刀. So I spent about 1 hour in surgery, and then it was funny because even then I said, it was in the evening. I stayed in the emergency room all afternoon. And then in the evening, they had the surgery. And I was still saying, oh, I want to go home. And they were like, no. The doctor said, you need to stay 2 or 3 days in the hospital. I said, no. I said, how about 1 day? And they were like, okay, we'll think about it. And so the next day, the morning, the doctor came to my room, and he said, okay, you can go home. So I think this is one thing I've noticed, the big difference between many of my Taiwanese friends and my American friends. Americans, they don't like hospitals. They want to go home as soon as possible. And so, but Taiwanese, I think if the doctor says, okay, you have to stay 2 or 3 days, they're okay, no problem. So I said, no, I don't want to stay 2 or 3 days. I want to go home. So I just stayed 1 night in the hospital, and then my friend came and took me home. No, I was very, very fortunate. They took many X-rays, and there were no broken bones. So I don't know. I think the main thing was my knee hit the road very hard, and of course my hands and everything were a little bit messed up. But the main problem was my knee. But so they put when they sew up your leg or sew up anything, we call that stitches, right? I mean, obviously, sewing is just, to sew, right? You can sew your clothes, but we, for wounds like our body, when we have that, we usually call it to stitch or stitches, right? So stitch can be a 名词 or a 动词. So, of course, many people, my friends were saying, how many stitches did you get, right? And it was, I don't know if they're stitching differently, because in the old days, long time ago, it seemed like for 12 centimeters, you would need to have a lot of stitches. But actually, there are only 10 stitches here. So I don't know if they have a new way of stitching, because I know in, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, that would have taken, 20 stitches maybe for something that long. But they put 12 stitches in my knee. But then it was funny, about a week later, I went back to the hospital, and they took off the bandage, and I realized they had more stitches down here. So there were stitches in 2 places. There were about 3 or 4 down here and 10 here. But so anyhow, why don't we say this together? Stitch, stitch, stitches, stitches. Yes. It's the same idea. Suture is more of a medical term. So suture is like also to sew. If you talk to a doctor, they'll probably use this word, but most non-doctors would say this word. They'd say stitching or stitches. But suture is a medical word. And we only use this word for medical, for 医疗. So they can say the doctor, and again, this can be a 名词 or 动词. You could say the doctor sutured up my wound. Okay. Of course, wound, W-O-U-N-D, is a 伤口, right? Okay. So why don't we say it together? And this T has a ch sound to it. So why don't we say together? Suture, suture, wound, wound, sew, sew. Yeah, of course, sew is pronounced the same as sew. Okay. Yeah. So anyhow, but I'm very thankful that, even though it was a lot of mafan and I had problems, it was very difficult to walk because it was very funny after the first week. I was starting to feel a little bit better. I could walk slowly, but then the problem was after about a week, 10 days, this foot started to hurt because I was putting all my pressure on my left foot, right? And so this foot had a bit of, we say tendonitis. It's kind of inflammation. So this foot was very painful for about almost a week. And so then it was even more difficult to walk. But I'm very happy that there was no infection. Because when the doctor said there were so many 小石头 inside, I thought, there's all this dirt and there's other stuff in the inside. Maybe there's going to be an infection. But there was no infection. So I'm very happy about that. Yeah, and you should see my helmet. You should see my motorcycle helmet. It's got scratches all over it. So I told my friends, I'm like, that's why you need to wear a motorcycle helmet, because I could see there were scratches across I had my visor down. I could see scratches across the front of the helmet, down the side. So yeah, the helmet, very, very important. The only thing I now that I think about it, and of course it's a lot of too much, usually it's mafan, but some of my friends do wear gloves and leather gloves, Pete. And I have leather gloves at home, but I never wear them because it's too mafan to carry them around. But if I had leather gloves, it would have been better, right? Because you put your hands down. So I don't know. Maybe I'll start wearing leather gloves. Yeah. But I had leather boots on, and that really helped. The boots were really protecting my feet. No problems with my feet. So I think I know that, many of you probably ride motor scooters every day and same here. But I do think that if you're going to ride a lot, maybe it's good to think about some protection because, if you get in a motorcycle accident, it's not fun. Okay, so why don't we say this together? Infection. Infection. And the verb, of course, is to infect. To infect. There's another word that I was just mentioning, inflammation. Sorry, that's an A. Okay, and that comes from the word to inflame. And inflame is usually when something, inflammation. Do you know this word? It's usually, it's like when something gets very, like some part of your body gets irritated or infected, and then it gets hot and red, and we say it's inflamed. Now, it could be because of an infection, but it could be some other reason, like my left foot. I was just using it too much or putting too much stress, so it got inflamed. So why don't we say together, to inflame? To inflame. Inflammation. Inflammation. And this is a cause for many medical conditions. People like arthritis. Maybe some of you have arthritis. How do you say arthritis? Very common. Arthritis is a kind of inflammation. It's an inflammation of your joints, right? Okay, you have your elbow, your knee, or your shoulder. Or your fingers. That's called the inflammation of the joints of a joint or joints. Okay, so why don't we say together, joint, joint, right? And a joint is wherever there's like again your shoulder or your fingers or whatever. Yeah. So anyhow, I'm happy to be here. I can. After I went to the hospital a week ago, the doctor said, 你不用再回来, but you don't have to come back. And he said, unless you have a problem. And he said, 可以开始运动. So I was like, okay, good. But I don't have, I can get it to about 90 so far, but hopefully I can keep bending it. Yeah, it's very funny how different cultures have different attitudes about hospitals and doctors. I really don't like going to the hospital or the doctor. So yeah, when I was there, not the last time, but 2 weeks ago, every week the nurse had to change the dressing, right? And it was the same nurse. Every time I went in, it was the same nurse who would change it. And 2 times she said, 你们外国人好像不怕痛, you know? Yeah. And so yeah. Anyhow, I was happy to see that. So it you know, surprisingly, after the surgery, the knee hurt for about 48 hours, you know. But after that, it didn't hurt that much. I was a little bit surprised. It was okay, you know. What? Yeah, I don't know. And my hands, I thought my hands would hurt more too because they were all, you know, but it was okay. It wasn't too bad. So yeah, it was actually the inflammation on my left foot hurt more than my knee at sometimes when it, you know, it was just painful. Oh, well, yeah, well, I hope so. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So, okay. So anyhow, why don't we get on to some stories here? You know, obviously there are a couple big stories in the news, front page article today. So the headline is kind of funny. It says Russia dancing to China's tune, according to the Taiwan 外交部, the MOFA, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. What does that mean when you say someone is dancing to somebody's tune? Well, yeah, but if you are dancing to somebody's tune, it usually means that you are following whatever they say, right? So you know what does a tune mean? What's that mean? Yeah, music. It's like a song, a tune, a melody, you know. And so if you're dancing to a song or a melody, but you're here, of course, it's an expression. It means to dance to someone's tune. It means that you are following their music, right? So basically, Russia is following Xi Jinping's lead, his guidance, whatever he's saying, his policies, or whatever you want to say. It could be anything. So yeah, it's a very funny expression. So if you say you're just dancing to his tune, or he's dancing his tune, or whatever, basically it means that you're following somebody else's lead. Now, to be honest, when you say this as an expression, it has a slightly negative feel. You have your own plan, your own idea. You just follow whatever they do. So it kind of, I mean, it's not I wouldn't say it's super negative, but it is a little bit negative if you say he's dancing to his tune. So yeah. So why don't we say it together? Russia dancing to China's tune. Tune. Okay, tune. So yeah, like he said, if you wanna say tune, another word would be, you know, song. A tune might be part of a song, you know, but maybe like he said, a melody, right? A melody is like maybe part of a song, right? Or you could say the melody of the song, you know, or the song has a nice tune, you know, or you know, so the song is more of a complete, you know, song, you know, but melody, tune is like part of a song. Yeah. So yeah. So anyhow, I'll read this. It says expansionism. The ministry condemned Moscow's support of Beijing's authoritarian government and its false statements to belittle and damage Taiwan's sovereignty. Now, expansionism comes from what word? To expand. And expand means to do what? Enlarge, to get bigger, right? If you have a balloon, you know, chicho, and you start blowing air into the balloon will expand. So what is this kind of expansion? When you see ISM, usually it means it's some sort of a 主义, right? So if you say expansionism, what does that mean? Right. But usually at the expense of other countries, right? Or other people, right? So if you're just trying to make your territory, or maybe taking somebody else's land, or you're affecting, you know, 影响到 another country or another people, right? So there's many ways there's expansionism, you know, like, and it can be like this of course means like it's a 政策, it's a policy, it's a 主义, because it has that ISM. So let's say it together. Expansionism. Expansionism. Scold, to denounce, to criticize,批评. The word that you just used, denounce, is a pretty good word. I think it's pretty close to condemn. If you denounce something or someone, it means you're saying it's bad, it's wrong, right? If someone does something bad and you denounce their action, you say that was wrong, you shouldn't have done that, or that's evil, or that's no good. That's to denounce something or someone. So to condemn is similar, right? Now, of course, you can condemn usually means to also say someone is guilty, right? So, you can say the court condemned him to prison, or the court condemned him to death even, 死刑, if someone kills someone and they're found guilty, we say they were condemned to death. So condemn means to find guilty, to find someone is guilty, or say someone is guilty. So why don't we say together, condemn? Now, that there's an N there, but we don't pronounce that. So we just say condemn, condemn, denounce, denounce, right? Now, for courts, 法院, we would use this word more. We wouldn't say this word. Denounce is more of a just say, oh, that you're wrong, this is wrong, I don't like that. But condemn can have more of an official sound to it. So the ministry condemned Moscow. Of course, Moscow is the Shodu of Russia. Moscow's support of Beijing's authoritarian government. I think we've said this word before, authoritarian government. What's an authoritarian government? Usually totalitarian is slightly stronger in the idea than authoritarian. They're similar, but it's almost like, authoritarian governments like this and totalitarians like this. So I'll give you an example. We might say that Taiwan used to have an authoritarian government, back in the 50 years ago, right? Or 60 years ago, 70 years ago. The system in Taiwan was considered to be authoritarian. There was no open democracy, 民主, and there was really just one group, one party. But we might say a country like Beihan is totalitarian. So totalitarian has kind of a very extreme, because you can see of the word total, right? Total means everything, right? So if you turn that into totalitarian, that means they have total control over everything, just like Beihan, North Korea. So it's almost like you start with authoritarian, then you move into totalitarian governments. Totalitarian would be the most extreme. So, okay, so yeah, authoritarian means there's no democracy. It's not democratic. There's just one group or one person controlling it. So why don't we say it together, authoritarian. Authoritarian. Totalitarian. Totalitarian. Yes. Well, I mean, dictatorial, you know what a dictator is, right? So a dictator would be like, like Xi Jinping. But yeah, dictator. We know this word, right? We've studied this before. How do we say dictator in Chinese? Yeah, someone with all the power in their hands. So why don't we say dictator? Dictator. Okay, just like, the word to dictate, right? Dictate means almost like to order something. He dictated that they should serve his salad after his dinner. I don't know. If you order someone to do something, it means you dictate. You specifically tell them what you want them to do. Now, dictate has another meaning that I'll just mention, and that is to dictate. Like, they don't do this too much anymore, but in the old days, write it down, right? So in the old days, maybe sometimes people still do this. If you were like a 大老板 at a 公司 and you wanted to send a letter to somebody or a note to somebody, you would call your secretary and you would say, I want to dictate a letter, right? And so you would just sit there and you would say it. You would just say, okay, dear so-and-so, I thank you for the, and the secretary or whoever was helping you would write down everything. and they would write the letter and send it out. So to dictate means to say out, to say something out, usually for the purpose of someone else writing it down. But usually to dictate means to order, to specify. Like, sometimes if someone has a very, very specific request for something, they dictate that. But so you can think about a dictator, somebody has full control, full power over something. So he used the word, you said dictatorship, right? So dictatorship is simply any government or any system that comes under a dictator. It's not really a official style of government, but usually, obviously, a dictatorship could be a totalitarian government. I guess it could also be an authoritarian government, depending on the situation. Okay? Yeah. I think most people would say it's a authoritarian government or partially an authoritarian government. It kind of tries to be democratic, but there's really just one party in power, right? There's no, it's not what we would call a full democracy. I think most people would probably say that. Most people from the outside who are saying that. So why don't we say it together? Yes. Well, I guess. I mean, you could call it anything. Fraternal means like a father, someone who provides guidance. But it depends, I guess, what your definition of democracy is, right? If you want to say that, to me that sounds like a nice way of saying that it's not an open democracy, right? It's like saying, oh, well, we're a democracy, but we tell you what to do, or you follow our guidance. So anyhow, I would say a lot of people would say it leans towards an authoritarian style of government. Although I wouldn't say it's not a full authoritarian government. It's just, I don't know, I'm sure there's different names for it. But it's obviously Taiwan is more open and free when it comes to a political system than, say, a country like Singapore. And there are many countries that admire Singapore's system because they feel it's less chaotic. I know that even China, I've heard, has looked at Singapore's system. So anyhow, but why don't we say this together? To dictate. To dictate. Dictator. Dictator. Dictatorship. Dictatorship. Of course, this is one word, but we add this SIHIP, like sounds like chuan ship. But yeah, anyhow. So going back to the article, it says the ministry condemned, we could say government and its false statements to what? To belittle and damage Taiwan's sovereignty. Now, we talked about this before. Sovereignty is you have power or control over your own territory, right? So most people, I think, would say Taiwan is a sovereign country, right? We have our own government, our own military, our own territory, our own democracy. So sovereignty means you have full power or control over your own territory. So why don't we say together sovereignty? So why don't we say together sovereignty? Sovereignty. But they're saying that, of course, that these statements by Beijing belittle and damage Taiwan's sovereignty. Now, this word belittle, I don't know if we've studied this before. It's a good word. What does to belittle mean? Yeah, so you can see the word little, right? Xiao, right? So if we say to belittle someone, it means to put them down, okay? So let's say, one of your friends does something they think is great, right? They say, oh, wow, look at this. I finished this. I did this work. And you're like, that's nothing. I did that yesterday. I do that every day. That's 没有什么意思. That's to belittle them or belittle their achievement, right? So if you put someone down or you try to make someone feel smaller or something they did, you can say he belittled her achievement, or her, whatever she did to make it seem smaller. So why don't we say together belittle? Belittle. Okay, so yeah, if you belittle Taiwan's sovereignty, of course, you're making Taiwan's sovereignty seem less important, okay? So let's go on and look at this article. It says the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or some people say MOFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs yesterday condemned Moscow for a joint statement that called Taiwan an inalienable part of China, accusing Russia of dancing to China's tune. So there's that expression, dancing to China's tune. Again, it's not a good thing. You say, oh, you're just dancing to his tune. It means you're just saying or doing whatever he says. Okay, so joint statement, of course, means joint means together, right? So Beijing and Moscow issued a joint statement that called Taiwan an inalienable. Now, I think we've said this word before, maybe not, but this is a very, you see this word a lot when it comes to this story. What does inalienable mean? Yeah, it means inseparable. It means we cannot take them apart. We cannot, they're by law, by nature, they're together, right? Inalienable. So if there's something that cannot be removed or taken away or separated, we say it's inalienable. So this word can also be used for other things. Like, for example, in a democracy like Taiwan, we would, or the US, we would argue that we have certain inalienable rights. 权利, right? Somebody say, what are your inalienable rights? Well, someone say, I have the right to I don't know, to vote, okay? Or I have a right to live my life or choose my own job, or I have a right to, there's many rights we have. I have a right to freedom, okay? So those are, we would say, inalienable rights. Those are rights that you cannot take away from me. Those are rights you cannot deny me, okay? So if China says Taiwan is an inalienable part of China, that means that you can't take it away. It's there. So why don't we say together, if we say, I'll just actually, why don't we, while we're talking about this word, actually, let's just say this word first together. Inalienable. Inalienable. Okay, there are certain words in here that you can see, right? What are some? Alien. Okay, so an alien is what? Well, it could be, but it's very funny. And ET, like someone from another planet. But all Waigoran in Taiwan, like myself, we have a special card called an ARC, Alien Resident Certificate. Doesn't mean I'm like a Waixingren or something like that. It means that alien means someone who's not from here, right? Now, of course, so alien could mean someone who's not from Earth, but it could also mean someone who's not from Taiwan or the U.S. So we could say a foreign alien would be a foreign Waigoran who's from another country. So we use that word alien. Why don't we say together alien? Alien. Now, I'll just use one more word here that's related to this. It's a pretty good word. To alienate. What does that mean? If you alienate somebody, what does that mean? Well, yeah, it means that you make them feel like they don't belong, okay? Or maybe sometimes people, it's not even something you make someone feel. Sometimes people feel that way because of something that happened, right? So you can say he feels alienated from his parents because they never talk to him or he never sees them, okay? So someone can feel alienated, or you can alienate somebody, If I have a friend and then I stop talking to them and I don't hang out with them and I treat them unkindly, then I might alienate them. They might feel like they're no longer with friends anymore. You used a word that is similar but not similar but slightly different. Like I said, someone can be alienated by an action, or they can feel alienated. Ostracize is more of a direct 动词. If you ostracize someone, you push them out. You make them, you definitely, so they're not part of you. You literally, you make them feel like they're not part of you. So if you have a group of people and you decide to ostracize somebody, or someone is ostracized, maybe they did something bad, or they've acted in a different way, and so then the group ostracizes them. It means they avoid them, they push them out. Okay, so it's a similar but slightly different word. I think this word has more of a direct. You could, but it's something that almost happens more. You could say we decided to. Yeah. It's more like he feels alienated. That's a word expression we use. So one more time, let's say this together. To alienate. to alienate, to ostracize, to ostracize. Right, so whenever you see alienate, just remember it's like to make someone feel like they're outside the group, like they're not from there, that they're not part of something. That might be your family, that might be a friendship, that might be a relationship. Estrange is yeah, it's a good word. Estrange is different though. Slightly different. Estranged or estranged, if you want to add a D, which would make it a 形容词, estranged, or they are, well, it could be, it actually doesn't have to be a 动词, it could be more of a, it could be estranged from each other. Estranged is more like separated, okay? This word is most frequently used with marriages, okay? If two people are married but they're estranged, it means that they're married but they're not living together. They've been separated from each other on purpose, usually. Not because someone's living in Taipei and someone's living in Taichung, or it's because it's intentional. So let's say a couple, they don't talk to each other, and then finally one of them decides to move out, but they're still married. We say they're estranged from each other. It means they don't live together. It's almost like they don't have a real relationship anymore. And we could have, of course, we could use that in other ways. Like we could say these two friends are estranged from each other. It means they're not together anymore. But it's the idea of being separated from each other on purpose, for a specific reason. So why don't we say together, estrange, estrange. And more common with the D, estranged, estranged. Right, so we could talk about an estranged couple, or that they are estranged, you know. So it just means, yeah, they're separated, okay. But not. It's funny because when we say they're estranged, we don't usually. That's not when they're not divorced, because if they were divorced, we would say they're divorced, 离婚, right? But if they're still together but separated, we say estranged. Yeah, okay. So let's read this together then. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Yesterday condemned Beijing and Moscow for a joint statement that called Taiwan an unalienable part of China. One more time, an unalienable part of China. Oh, sorry, inalienable. Sorry, it's too early in the morning. Let's say it again, inalienable part of China. Accusing Russia of dancing to China's tune. Dancing to China's tune. Yeah, sorry, I don't know what I was thinking. Let's say that word again, inalienable. Right. Okay, so let's go on. It says, Russian President Vladimir Putin hosted Chinese President Xi Jinping for 2 days of talks this week, with leaders signing a joint statement pledging to deepen their strategic partnership and affirming Russia's support for China on Taiwan. Now, of course, there should be no space there, but yeah, affirming Russia's support for China on Taiwan. Okay, so of course, host is when you invite somebody, you welcome somebody. You can host some guests at your house. You can host someone to a dinner at a restaurant, but you host somebody. And you are the host. If you're the one who invited, then you are the host, right? You can say, tonight I am the host for this dinner. Okay? So why don't we say together, hosted. Hosted. Now, I don't know, I don't hear this word as much anymore, but you do say, if it's a woman who is hosting, we can say hostess. So it's HOSTESS. Okay? But the word host, I think, can be used for male or female these days. But if you want to be specific, we would say hostess. So why don't we say together, hostess? Hostess. Okay. It's just like, it's very interesting. When I was a kid, when you fly in the airplane, everyone used to say stewardess. Okay. But nowadays, we use a more neutral word. We say flight attendant. Okay. Flight attendant. But it used to be steward, stewardess. So stewardess. Yes. It's very uncommon. Maybe. I don't remember ever hearing that word personally. I've heard it, I've read it before, but yeah, I think, well, now definitely we say flight, F-L-I-G-H-T, attendant, to attend somebody means to help somebody, A-T-T-E-N-D-A-N-T, flight attendant. But yeah, maybe back in the 50s, and mainly because almost everyone was a woman, right? There was very rare in the old days. I mean, when I say old days, 60, 70 years ago, to see a man doing that job, it was almost always a woman. But now, of course, there are men and women. So anyhow, hosted Chinese President Xi Jinping for 2 days of talks with the leaders signing a joint statement pledging. What's another word for pledge? Similar, promise. Okay. Some people might say a promise is a little bit stronger than pledge, but pledge is similar to promise. Okay, so why don't we say together, pledge, pledging. Right. I think I told you, I don't know if they do this anymore, actually. I'm sure some schools do, but when I was a kid, every morning at school, we would pledge the allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. So we would stand up and there would be the 美国国旗, and we would pledge our allegiance to the flag. I don't know if I'd be very curious to know if anybody does that anymore. But anyhow, to show your loyalty to the flag of the United States. Yeah, you could pledge your commitment to somebody, right? We could say that marriage is a pledge of kind, or promise, a pledge, a promise, something like that. Okay, so they pledged to deepen their strategic partnership. Now, strategic, of course, comes from the word strategy, which is a big, like, plan, right? Like, I think I've told you this before. Strategy is your big plan, and tactic, T-A-C-T-I-C, is how you achieve that plan. What tactics, what methods do you use for that plan? So strategy is the big one, and then tactic is the technique, the way. Okay, so why don't we say together, strategic, strategic. Okay, and they affirmed Russia's support for China and Taiwan. Now, what does affirm mean? A-F-F-I-R-M. If you affirm something, it means it means to reassure, or to it's almost very similar to the word confirm, right? C-O-N-F-I-R-M, right? If you confirm something, you treat. For 2 days of talks this week, with the leaders signing a joint statement, pledging to deepen their strategic partnership. Okay, one more time. Strategic partnership. And affirming Russia's support for Taiwan on China. For China on Taiwan. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be great if Russia supported Taiwan on China. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's go on. It says the ministry solemnly protests and strongly condemns China's authoritarian, expansionist government for continuing to issue false statements in the international arena to belittle and damage our country's sovereignty, it said in a statement. Of course, it is the Waijiaobu. Okay, so solemn, this word we use a lot in our official language, but what does solemn mean? S-O-L-M-E. Yeah, but solemn, if we just use solemn in everyday language, it means serious. Like it's not like funny, it's not humorous, it's very serious. So if you look at somebody and they have a very solemn expression on their face, or they act in a very solemn way, it usually means very serious. Maybe sometimes some people might say dignified. Okay, like okay, if you go to a funeral, somebody dies, right? You go to their funeral. Usually that's a very solemn ceremony or occasion. Like not always though. I've been to funerals that were very positive, upbeat. Sometimes I know when I sit here and cry about this person dying, we're going to celebrate their life. You know, they had a good life, they lived a good life, so we're going to celebrate together. We're going to remember that. So that's more of a positive way. But you know, solemn, we have many solemn events. Okay, so but if we say solemnly protest, it means this is a very serious matter. We take this very seriously. This is not some sort of joke. Okay, so why don't we say together solemn, solemnly. Okay, solemnly protests and strongly condemns. There's that word condemn. China's authoritarian expansionist government. Okay, we talked about that. For continuing to issue false statements. Of course, issue means to put out. To issue false, you know, 假的, statements in the international arena to belittle and damage our country's sovereignty. Now, what's this word arena mean? A-R-E-N-A. It's like a stadium, okay? So if I'm correct, Taichung is in the process of building a new arena, right? Finally. So he just used the word stadium. I'll tell you what the usual, it's a small difference, but I think usually a stadium is open air. So, you know, if it rains, the rain comes in. But arena is usually closed, like there's a roof on top. So in Taichung, what do they call it in Chinese? They call it 小巨蛋. Yeah. So that would be an arena. So I heard they're building a Taichung Arena on, I think, because it's open, right? So why don't we say together, stadium, arena. So it's funny here, though. It says China is continuing to issue false statements in international arena. So what does that mean? I mean, are they in an arena? What is he talking about here? What are they talking? Yeah, it's kind of like saying, you know, we talk about, like you said, the stage, what is it, 舞台, right? We're not talking about a real stage. We're talking about in front of everybody, right? So when we talk about the international arena, it means just out in the world. So where everybody can see it, where the whole world's watching or looking, right? So if we say the world is an arena or the world is a stage, it means that, yeah. So we could say issuing false statements, I guess we could say on the international stage, but I think a better expression is in the international arena. It just means out globally in the world, to the world. Okay? Does everybody understand that? Okay. Why don't we say that word again? Arena. Okay, and of course they say that belittles and damages Taiwan's sovereignty. Yeah, great game, wonderful game. I told all my Japanese friends, congratulations. You know, I'll be honest with you. I wasn't like 100% supporting the U.S. I felt like I like both Japan and the U.S. I felt like I like both Japan and the U.S. teams. So yesterday, did any of you watch the game yesterday? Okay. Yeah, I woke up in the morning and watched that, and I really wasn't cheering for either team. It was a fun game, and the game before where Japan beat Mexico, that was an amazing game. Yeah, I mean, ninth inning, the Japanese friends, I said, you know, gongshi, you know, congratulations. It's a very good game, and that the MVP, you know what MVP means, right? Most valuable player, Shohei Otani, right? Yeah, he's a great player. I mean, does he have a Chinese name or do they just? Okay, yeah. I think what's impressive about him is, of course, the news is talking a lot about him, is that he's been a great player ever since he was very young. But it was very funny. I didn't know this. I was watching the news last night, and they said that even when he was a boy, he had a whole list of goals. 目标. This year I'm going to do this. This year I'm going to do this. This year I'm going to what is he going to do? And he was meeting those goals, most of them. So, I think the thing that impressed me most about Shohei Otani, from what everybody says, is he's also a super nice guy. Everybody says he's a very, very good, nice person. He's a nice person. He's not like he's not arrogant. He's just a really, really nice person. So yeah. Anyhow, good for Japan. Yeah. Actually, it wasn't Cuba they lost so bad. The first game, Panama, right? Wasn't it Panama? I don't know what happened. I had tickets to that game, and I had to give them up because of my knee. I was so angry. I had my friend had got me tickets to go to that game, the Taiwan Panama game. But my Shi guy, those seats, you have to bend your leg to sit in the seats, and I was like, Svana. So I gave my tickets away to my friends. But yeah, after I saw the score, I was like, well, maybe it's good I did not go. Yeah, I don't know what happened. It's too bad about that game. They should have beaten Panama. Or they should have played better. So yeah, but it was fun. It was fun to have all that baseball here in Taichung. But yeah, yeah. We would say complimentary ticket. Yeah. Complimentary is if, like, someone gives it to you for free. So if actually I say this drink is complimentary. Where did I put my pen? Oh, here it is. If we say this is complimentary, actually it's good to know. That's an E. Complimentary. So if you go to maybe you go to a hotel and you check in, they say, oh, well, you get a free complimentary breakfast at the hotel. You're like, oh, okay, great. That means you get a free breakfast there. It means free. But often it means it's something that they give you as like privilege. So when you say like a gongguan, they give you tickets, or give you something, we often say it's complimentary. Yeah, we use that term. And in America, often we shorten that word to a 动词, and we say to comp. We say comp something. So you can say they comped my room. I have friends who are 记者, reporters, and they want to go to a restaurant, and they'll call the restaurant. They'll say, do you have any complimentary dinners for 记者, for reporters? And they'll be like, oh yeah, sure, we have 2. You can come here and eat. Normally we don't say that's a great thing to do as a 记者, but they will do that. So I know one place where they comp many things, and my friends talk about this a lot, is Las Vegas. If you go to Las Vegas and you want to stay in a hotel, if you're going to gamble there, and you spend a lot of money doing the 赌博, right, gambling, sometimes the casino, right, we don't care, yeah. So yeah, they say they comped our room. So that's an expression we use. So why don't we say this together? Complimentary. Comp. Right. And often we say something is compliments of. Oops. So sometimes you go to a place and you'll get something free, and on maybe there'll be a card that'll say compliments of the hotel, or compliments of your host, right? It means that I'm giving this to you. I'm extending this to you. So we say compliments of. Now, what is a compliment usually? If we just use the word compliment by itself, what does that mean? Praise, 赞美, right? You can say, I complimented their good service. I complimented the great food. It means I praised them, 赞美. But here it has a different meaning. Compliments of, it means that we've given this to you, or we're going to give this. This is a complimentary dinner or gift or whatever it is. So yeah, it's a good expression to know. Yeah. So anyhow, let's go back and finish reading this paragraph. Okay, so let's read this. The ministry solemnly protests. Solemnly protests. And strongly condemns China's authoritarian expansionist government for continuing to issue false statements in the international arena to belittle and damage our country's sovereignty, it said in a statement. Okay, that's a photo caption. It also condemned Russia's attempt to sing and dance to China's tune for its conspiracy of aggression and expansion. Okay, now, so here it's not just dancing to someone's tune, they're saying singing and dancing to somebody's tune. Now, what's a conspiracy? What would be a simple word for conspiracy? I guess there's more than one word. There is a scheme. Someone said scheme. Starts with a P. Yeah, that's the word I was thinking of. Okay. You know, plan is more of a neutral word, right? Plan, but a secret plan or a plan that nobody knows about, we talk about as a scheme. You know, it's almost like it's secret. Like, so if there's a conspiracy, usually it's something that not everybody knows about. It's like it's there to undermine, it's there to do something. So we can say there was a conspiracy against the government. Conspire. Okay, sorry. Okay, to conspire. To conspire. Right, you can say he conspired against his leader or his president, okay? And then these words, scheme. Now, of course, the CH is not a ch, it's a K sound. So let's say scheme, scheme, plot, plot, right? So you can say they plotted against the president, they schemed against the president, they conspired against the president. Okay, so here it says that China's conspiracy of aggression and expansion. Of course, they're saying China is being aggressive towards other countries, especially Taiwan. Read this. It also condemned China's attempt to sing and dance. Oh, sorry, no, Russia's. Okay, yeah. See what happens when I take a month off? I forget everything. Okay, again, Russia's attempt to sing and dance to China's tune for its conspiracy of aggression and expansion. One more time, aggression and expansion. Okay. So it says here in the joint statement, Russia, here, so remember we talked about the word affirm, right? So here we have the word reaffirm. So in the joint statement, Russia reaffirmed its adherence to Beijing's One China principle, terming Taiwan an inalienable part of Chinese territory, Xinhua News Agency reported. Okay, so of course they affirmed before, right? So here they're affirming again. So they reaffirmed its adherence. Now, to adhere, A-D-H-E-R-E, adhere to something, what does that mean? Yeah, if the rule says you should not drive over 60 kilometers per hour and you would adhere to that, that means you stay under the speed limit, right? Or if you adhere to a policy, you know, some sort of 政策, or you even adhere to your own values, right? You follow what's important to you. So it means to follow or to stick to something, okay? It sounds, when you say to stick to something, it makes me think of another word that's kind of similar. Let me just, I know we've never talked about this word. Adhesive, okay? An adhesive is something that makes something stick to something else. So what are different kinds of adhesives? Well, we have glue, okay, tape, if something need to tape, tape is sticky, right? So it sticks, it helps something stick. But yeah, glue or tape or something like that, we say are adhesives, okay? So why don't we say together? You can say this is an adhesive material. This is adhesive, okay? Or just we can say as being, so we can say adhesive. That's adhesive. That's an adhesive, okay? So yes. I think it's clear. Yeah. That's like a super adhesive, right? Super glue. Oh, yeah, that's just called, no, what's this different kind of glue? That's, what's that come? No, what's this different kind of glue? That's, what's that kind of glue called? Yeah, I know, we that's used for glue sniffing, sniffing as like you said, drugs. I don't know, but when I was a kid, I used to like building models. You know what a model is? Model airplane, model ships, model cars made out of plastic. And there was a kind of glue that I think it's the same kind of glue, and it had a very strong smell to it. And whenever you use that glue, they always said, make sure your windows are open, right? But I know that kind of glue, if you sniff it, it could make you high, So yeah, I don't know what we call that. I know we call that glue model glue for models. For modeling, but this kind of glue you talk about, so yeah, I don't know what we call that. I know we call that glue model glue for models, for modeling, but this kind of glue you talk about, I'm not sure what the technical name for it is. So yeah, okay. So anyhow, but that's a kind of adhesive. So here it says reaffirmed its adherence, sticking to Beijing's One China policy, terming. Okay, term means to say that Taiwan is to call it, you could say simply to call Taiwan an inalienable part of Chinese territory. Okay, so let's read this. In the joint statement, China reaffirmed its adherence to Beijing's One China principle. Terming Taiwan an inalienable part. Let's say it again. Inalienable part of Chinese territory. Xinhua News Agency reported. Right. So it's funny because every time I say one China, I want to say the word policy, right? But they say sometimes you hear one China policy, one China principle. Policy is more like a 政策, right? But principle is more like a 主义, right? Like in Taiwan, we have the 三民主义, the three principles of the people. So we use that word principle, 主义, right? So yeah, it's different, slightly different. Okay, Russia opposes any form of Taiwan independence and firmly supports China's measures to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Xinhua quoted the statement as saying, okay, so firmly supports China's measures to safeguard. Safeguard, what's a simple word for that? Protect. Yeah, there's many things you can safeguard. Safeguard your security, your freedom, your whatever. But here it says to safeguard its sovereignty. So now, of course, they're not talking about Taiwan's sovereignty. They're saying China, we support China's efforts to safeguard its own sovereignty, meaning that they think, well, Taiwan is part of our sovereign territory. So safeguard their sovereignty and territorial, that means their land, integrity. Now, if something has integrity, it means it holds together. It stays together. It doesn't break. It doesn't fall apart. So you can say, how much integrity does this building have? Now, of course, we can talk about personal integrity, right? If someone has integrity, what does that mean? They're honest. Well, what else? Yeah, they have good principles. They have strong principles. they follow those. They don't 随便 fall apart. But we often say like a structure, or even we could say, does this table have a lot of integrity, or does this building have a lot of, it means will it stand strong, or will it break or fall apart? So if you say that has no, or there's weak integrity, or there's no integrity, it means it's very breakable. It will fall apart. So why don't we say together, integrity. Integrity. Right. So if you say someone, a person has integrity, that's a very strong compliment. It's high praise. It's a good thing. A man, often we say a man or woman of integrity. Okay. So this is what Russia says. So let's read this. Russia opposes any form of Taiwan independence. And firmly supports China's measures to safeguard its sovereignty. Sovereignty and territorial integrity. Integrity. Xinhua quoted the statement as saying, okay. So then it says, she left Moscow yesterday after a summit with Putin that the two leaders hailed as a new era in their relationship, Russian news agencies reported. Okay, let's read this next paragraph together with this. The nations eager to curb Western power expressed concerns about NATO expansion in Asia and agreed to deepen a partnership that has grown closer since Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. Okay, so here it says, summit, of course, we've talked about this. What's summit mean? It's a high-level meeting, right? Like usually between two leaders, okay? But it also means like the peak of a mountain too, right? The summit of Yushan or Xueshan, that's the very top of the mountain. So let's say together, summit. Summit. Okay, and the two leaders hailed this. And hail, what's a simple word for hail? Praise. 赞美. Remember we talked about to compliment, okay? To praise, to hail, okay? Hail is like usually strong praise, to hail something, okay? So they hailed this as a new era. And what's an era? Yeah, what is it? 时代, right? Or 年代 or whatever. Yeah, era. It's a period of time. So usually a specific period. So why don't we say era? Era. Okay, so it's a new era, in a new time in their relationship. Okay, a new period in their relationship. Okay, and then it says the nations eager to curb Western power. I think we've used this word before, curb. What does C-U-R-B mean, curb? Yeah, there's a very simple word, very basic word we can use instead of curb. Starts with an L. L. Yes, limit. Limit. 限制. Okay, so if you're going to curb something, it means you're going to limit it. Okay, so I'll tell you, often, today in today's world, many people want to lose weight, right? And so how do you lose weight? Well, one way to lose weight is to curb your appetite. Okay, means to limit your appetite. Does everybody know what appetite means? Yeah, your or anything. You can have an appetite for many things. Appetite. Why don't we say together, appetite? Appetite. Yeah, I would say 90% of the time when we talk about appetite, we're talking about food. But people can have an appetite for, many things. There's an expression, we say somebody has an appetite for destruction. It means that often it means they're trying to destroy themselves. Okay, they just keep acting in a very destructive way. I guess you could have an appetite, try to destroy other things too, but appetite. So if you curb your appetite, it means you try to reduce or limit your appetite so you feel less hungry. And how do we curb our appetite? Well, some people say you drink more water, right? If you drink lots of water or drink lots of tea or coffee even, you'll have less, you'll curb your appetite. You won't feel as hungry for food. Okay, so here they're trying to eager to curb or limit Western power. Okay, so why don't we say together, curb, curb. Okay, so they express concerns about NATO. Of course, NATO is what they say, 北约, right? 北约, expansion in Asia, and they agreed to deepen a partnership that has grown closer. Okay, so yeah. Okay, so let's read these two paragraphs, and then let's see here. Maybe we'll go on to a different article then. Okay. She left Moscow yesterday after a summit with Putin that the two leaders hailed as a new era in their relationship. Russian news agencies reported. The nations, eager to curb Western power, expressed concerns about NATO expansion in Asia. And agreed to deepen a partnership that has grown closer since Putin ordered the invasion of Ukraine. Ukraine. Right. Okay. Yeah, so anyhow, it was very funny. I was watching the news on TV the last two nights, and the news analysts were looking very closely at the video of Putin and Russia, Putin and Xi sitting next to each other. It was very interesting. They were looking at the body language, like, so I don't know. The body language, it's funny because it says here, they said that Putin is dancing to China's tune. But yet if you look at the body language on that one video, it almost looked like Putin had more control over Xi than, I don't know, who knows, Xi. Yeah, but many people, because of this visit, a lot of people say because of the war, Russia has now become the junior partner, the little brother of Xi Jinping or China. So I don't know, Xi. What did I do here? Let's go back and find a different story. So I was looking at this other story today, and I thought this is very unusual because, we were just talking about baseball, and I was a little bit surprised by this. I thought it was kind of fun. Did any of you actually go to the games? Did anyone go to a game? Okay. I know that if it was a game that Taiwan was not playing in, it was very, very easy to get tickets because, people weren't as interested in non-Taiwan games. Yeah. So I found this a little bit interesting. It says fans threaten to boycott Bros Sports after WBC. Of course, WBC is World Baseball Classic. Okay, it's that whole 大比赛. Okay, what's boycott mean? If you boycott something or someone, what does that mean? You refuse to support, but usually in a certain way. Like if you boycott a product, what do you do then? Let's say there's a company and you boycott their products. What are you going to do? You won't buy their products. Okay. If you're going to boycott a country, then probably you're not going to do business with them. You're not going to buy their products. You're not going to do trade with them, Maui with them. So you can boycott a country. You can boycott a company. I don't know if we would normally say boycott a person, but we could say a country or company, certainly. Okay. So, in America these days, it seems like if a company does something political, that is, I'm trying to think of a recent one. where they said we're going to boycott a company. What? For what? Yeah, I actually saw this one the last week, which was a little bit surprising. You know Hershey's chocolate, okay? It's an American chocolate company. In fact, Hershey is the name of a town in Pennsylvania, Bingzhou. It's very close to my parents' home. I've been there many times. And the whole town smells like chocolate. I kid you. And you know the street lamps, you know, on the road, the lamps on the road, they're all shaped like Hershey's Kisses. You know what a Hershey's Kiss is? It's a little chocolate. All the street lamps look like Hershey's Kisses. So it's like chocolate town, okay? So right now, some Americans are calling for the boycott of Hershey's products. You know why? It's very funny. Hershey's, not a Hershey's USA, Hershey's Canada had a 广告 on TV or online. I think it was more on online. It was an online ad about Women's Day or women's rights, okay? And they showcased, they highlighted, I think, 8 women who, did something special, okay? They wanted to promote women's rights. The problem is that one of those women is a transitioned over to become a woman. And many people were angry about that because they're like, this person's not a real woman. This person's like a man. This is what some people are saying. Now, the people who are boycotting. Now, of course, other people are fine with this. They're like, okay, great, no problem. But some people are very angry because it's about women's rights. It should be natural-born women, not this other person. So right now online, there's many people saying we should boycott Hershey's products. Of course, most of the people who are saying this are very more conservative, 保守. And of course, some people think it's good, some people think it's bad. But that's one thing I saw in the news recently. So anyhow, let's say this word together, boycott. Boycott. Okay, so fans threatened to boycott Bro Sports after WBC. I saw this headline, I was like, why? What's going on? What's the problem? Okay, so it says here, sports supporters say they plan to boycott events organized by Bros Sports Marketing Company over Taiwan's early exit from the World Baseball Classic earlier this month. So they're unhappy that Taiwan did not go forward in the WBC, which to me seems a little bit unusual, right? Because you're like, well, that's just the way it goes, right? That's the competition. But we can read more about this. So they plan to boycott events organized by this company over Taiwan's early exit. And what's exit mean? Go out, right? I mean, I'm sure there's an exit sign here somewhere in this room or outside in the door. Exit means 出口, right? So if you say, and of course that can be a noun or a verb. You can say he exited the room, or I'm going to exit this building. Okay, but early exit from the series means that from this World Baseball Classic means that they failed to advance. They failed to go on. They did not move past this stage. So it was an early exit from the World Baseball Classic earlier this month. Okay, so let's read this. Sports supporters said they plan to boycott events organized by Bros exit from the World Baseball Classic earlier this month. Okay, now it's funny, I suspect, maybe you know this, I'm not sure. When I see bros, bro is a short word it's a slang, it's a casual word for what? Brothers. I suspect this company is connected to the 兄弟队, right? I suspect, because all the games were held in Taichung, and this is the home stadium for the brothers baseball team. And so when I see bros, that's short for brother, okay? But it's very, very casual. It's not a word. It's like almost like slang, slang, S-L-A-N-G. So if you're like a cool person or a young person, and you say, hey, bro, how's it going? Bro means, hey, brother, how you doing? Okay. And I will say this, it's something I don't hear in Taiwan much, but in America, it's a very common expression. If someone is your 朋友, or even if you don't know them, like they're just somebody but you want to be friendly to them, you might call them brother. So let's say, you see somebody walking down the road and and they need help, and you say, hey brother, can I help you? It's like saying, hey man, hey friend, or hey bro, can I help you? Now bro is very, very casual, so I would not use the word bro unless you really know them, unless they're really your buddy, your friend. But I've noticed in America people use that term brother a lot. Men, of course, not women. We just say brother, you need help, something like that. No, well, no, I don't think you would say buddy for a woman. I mean, unless they were really, really were your good buddy, and they, it's a very casual friend, right? You might say, oh, she's my buddy. I guess you could say that, but it's not a buddy. For some reason, it has more of a male sense to it. Although I'm sure some people use it that way. A what? Bud is a short word for a casual. It's like saying bro is short for brother. Bud would be a word short for brother, buddy. But bud has another completely different meaning. And what is a bud? No, that's bod, B-O-D. Bud is what? It has a completely different meaning. No. It's like it's a good word for this time of the year. Why? If you look outside on the trees, there's many buds. What is a bud? Yeah, it's like before a flower opens up, there's a little bud, and then it will open up. It'll blossom into a flower. So some of the trees, there's no flowers yet. There's only buds in the springtime, but that bud will open, and you'll have a flower, a blossom. Okay, so that's another word for bud. So to use an expression, if you say they have a budding relationship, or that's a very common expression, budding, B-U-D-D-I-N-G, relationship, then budding becomes a 形容词. And what does that mean? A budding relationship simply means what? A developing, a growing. Budding relationship. So it means it's growing, it's developing, it's moving forward. Okay, it's a good thing. Usually it's very positive. I guess we could also say, but this doesn't have to be male or female. We could say a blossoming relationship. Now, blossom is when the flower is already open, right? It's opening. Bud is when it's going to open. So, beginning. So, budding or blossoming relationship. They're very similar ideas. Okay. So, why don't we say together, budding, budding, blossoming, blossoming. Yeah. Anyhow, different word from buddy, which means your 朋友, but often in a probably slightly more of a male sense. Although I will say, I guess you could use it for male or female, but I tend to hear it more for male. Someone says, he's my buddy. Okay. Just good friend, or if it was a girl and another girl, we'd say her girlfriend, right? Now girlfriend doesn't mean that they actually have a romantic relationship. Girlfriend just means a girl who's your friend, right? That's a very casual term with kids. Bestie, best, 最好, B-E-S-T, and then you add an I-E, bestie. Bestie is another way of saying my best friend. Yeah. But there's all these funny terms now that you hear online, especially on social media. I'll teach you one more that's very funny. This is not a word I use, an expression that was that existed when I was younger, but it's one that. Let's see if I can remember this one. Maybe you've heard this one. It's kind of funny. The first time I saw it, I thought it was. See if you can figure out what it means. Have you ever seen this word? Right. Someone who's your friend and your enemy. So maybe you're friends sometimes, and sometimes or maybe you're you're only friends because of some specific reason, like maybe because you both hate that person. So it's kind of like, or sometimes you're friends, sometimes you're enemies. So they say frenemy. Okay, so this is a very modern young people. You would hear this on social media. People use this word, but it's not a word. This didn't even exist when I was 10, 20 years ago. I heard another one recently. I thought this was kind of funny. Again, this is something that I think was invented in the last 10 years or so. If somebody is, I thought this was kind of funny. Hangry. Does anyone know what this means? Yes, very good. When you're so hungry that it makes you angry, okay? You're 饿到生气的时候, right? Because, sometimes you feel really hungry and it makes you angry. So you say, I feel very hangry, okay? So someone's angry and hungry at the same time, so they're hangry, okay? I thought that was very funny when I saw that. So, someone's like, I need to eat right now because I'm so, I'm really getting angry because I'm so hungry. So, I don't know. Who knows? It's something I think young people invented for social media, and then it started to grow. But I have seen some people use it outside. So if you ever hear someone say they're hangry, maybe that's what they're talking about. I thought this is a very creative use of a word. So anyhow, why don't we say these together? Frenemy, frenemy, hangry, hangry. Yeah. I don't know if you went to the dictionary. I don't know if they would have these words. Maybe they've added them. So anyhow, let's get back to the article and read this together. Let's go on to the next one. It says Taiwan hosted Pool A of the WBC in Taichung from March 8 to 12, with all 4 of their games sold out. Okay, let's keep going. Rose Sports reportedly secured the contract to organize the Pool A games for $4.4 million US. The company also received assistance from the Sports Administration, Taiwan CTBA baseball governing body, and other government agencies. Okay, now this is very interesting. When we say pool, what does that mean, Pool A? What would be another way of saying this? In other sports, 大比赛, they use a different word. They say group. So often, like they'll say Group A, Group B, Group C. Like if you watch the 世界杯, the World Cup, 足球比赛, they had groups, different groups. Each group had 4 countries, maybe 5, I forget, 4 or 5 countries. And the same with Taiwan, they had, these different pools. Now, pool, of course, you think of pools like a 游泳池, something like that. But it's another way of saying a group, okay? So here they use the word pool. So Pool A in WBC, World Baseball Classic, with all of their games sold out. Okay, that means, Mike Wangla, right? They're sold out. So reportedly, of course, this is according to reports, this company secured. It means they got. If you secure something, it means you get it. It's yours. So they secured the contract to organize these Pool A games, and they also got some assistance from different government agencies. Of course, CTBA stands for what? It's a name that many people hate. People don't like. CT stands for what? Chinese Taipei, right? Okay. I know many people are like, what's Chinese Taipei, right? So anyhow, Chinese Taipei Baseball Association. Okay. I know that many people would prefer to use the word Taiwan, but yeah. Okay, so let's read this together. Taiwan hosted Pool A of the WBC in Taichung from March 8 to 12, with all 4 of their games sold out. Rose Sports reportedly secured the contract to organize the Pool A games for $4.4 million US. The company also received assistance from the Sports Administration, Taiwan's CTBA baseball governing body, and other government agencies. Okay. Now, of course, it says here CTBA baseball governing body. It means this group. It's not like a body, but it's an organization that governs. Governs means to oversee, to supervise, to control baseball in Taiwan. So it's like the National Baseball Association, okay, for Taiwan. That's a photo caption. Okay, so it says here, now this is the game you were talking about. Taiwan opened with a loss to Panama, then won the next two games over Italy and the Netherlands, but succumbed to Cuba 7-1. Oh, so maybe you were talking about that game. Yeah, in a crucial last game on March 12th. Ultimately, all five teams in Pool A won two games and lost two, resulting in a tiebreaker. Okay, now you know it is a shame because like it says here, Taiwan's record, we say win-loss record, was the same as the other teams, right? But because they have, when the teams are all tied, then they have to look at other things, right? Like points scored against you, points that you scored, and all that. So anyhow, as a result, it was last in the group. So, you know, loss record for Taiwan, it's not bad. It's the same as the other teams, right? And I thought it was a very interesting group because, you know, Taiwan was lost really big to Panama, but then, who was it? It was somebody beat Panama the next day really badly, and it was a very hard to predict group or pool. Okay, so they open. Open, of course, means they started. You know, they started the tournament with a loss to Panama. Then they won the next two games. But now here's a word we've never talked about before. Succumbed. What does succumb mean? Yeah, basically it means you died from something. Okay, so or you gave in to something. Something overcame you. Okay, so for example, if you can say he succumbed to cancer. It means he died from cancer. Okay, he succumbed to a heart attack. It means he died because of a heart attack. But if you give in or something it overcomes you, you can use this word in other ways that don't mean death. For example, I'm trying to think of a good example. Okay, I'll give you a simple example. Let's say someone is provoking you. Someone's giving you trouble. And you can say, finally, I succumbed to my anger. It means I gave in to my anger. My anger overcame me. And so I showed anger. Maybe I started shouting at him, or I started hitting him, or I did something to him. But I succumbed to my anger. My anger overcame me. Does everybody understand that? Okay. So I just used the word hungry, right, or hangry. We could say he succumbed to his hunger. It could mean that you died because you were so hungry, but it could also mean that maybe there's all this food there, and you think, no, I'm not going to eat. I'm not going to eat this. I'm not going to touch it. I shouldn't eat that. But finally, you succumb to your hunger or your appetite, or it means that it overcame you. You say, okay, fine, I'm going to go ahead and eat it. Okay, so that word is a very interesting word. It means you gave into it. You gave into something. Yeah, it overcame you, or you gave into it. So, but succumb obviously here means they gave in. They were overcome by Cuba. Okay, so everybody understand that? Okay, so why don't we say the word succumb? Succumb. Okay, so succumb to Cuba 7-1 in a crucial. What's another word for crucial? Important, critical. Key. Okay, so why don't we say the word too? Crucial. That has a sh sound to it. Crucial. Okay, in a crucial last game on March 12th. Ultimately, now of course when we say ultimately, what's that mean? Finally, in the end. Okay, ultimately at the end. Ultimately. Okay, why don't we say it? Ultimately. Ultimately. Okay, all 5 teams in Pool A won 2 games and lost 2, resulting in a tiebreaker. So what is a tie? T-I-E. Yeah, 平手, right? Now, of course, you can tie your shoes. You can tie a knot. But a tie between 2 teams is 平手. So when we have a tiebreaker, it means we need to do something to break that tie. Maybe we count how many points they scored, or we count something else, but we find a way to break the tie, to make one team the winner and one team the loser. Now, what's another word for tie in sports? 运动. Well, we could say they're even. Yeah, they're the same. But there's another word we use a lot. It starts with a D. No, stalemate's more of a general word. But we say a draw. Okay? We can say the 2 teams drawed with each other, or they drew with each other, rather. Or you can say this game resulted or ended in a draw. So the draw, there was a tie, there was a draw in the game, or the game ended in a draw, or the game ended in a tie. Okay, so why don't we say together, tiebreaker. Tiebreaker. Okay. Okay, so let's read this together. Taiwan opened with a loss to Panama. Then won the next 2 games over Italy and the Netherlands. Netherlands. But succumbed to Cuba 7-1 in a crucial last game on March 12th. Ultimately, all 5 teams in Pool A won 2 games and lost 2, resulting in a tiebreaker. Tiebreaker. Yeah. Actually, that second game against Italy, that was a great game for Taiwan. I remember that. They came back and they won the game in the end. That was a fun game. I watched it on TV. So it says here, however, the key tiebreaker is runs allowed, and Taiwan allowed the most runs of any team in the group. Cuba and Italy took the top 2 spots, advancing to the quarterfinals in Japan. Now, of course, final means 决赛, right? Yesterday was the final. Quarterfinal means there's 4, quarter. Usually we have quarterfinals, and then after that we have semifinals, S-E-M-I, semifinal, and then we have the final. Quarterfinal, semifinal, final. Okay? So the key tiebreaker is runs allowed. Now, runs allowed, it's not runs scored, it's runs that you allow the other team to score against you. It's almost like points scored against you. Does everybody understand that? How many points did other teams score against you? So, if the game was 7-1, then if Cuba beat Taiwan 7-1, that means that Taiwan allowed 7 runs against them. So that's how they determine the tiebreaker. That's the main way to determine how the teams are ranked. Which team allowed the most runs against them? Okay, so Taiwan allowed the most runs of any team in the group. So that's how it was decided. Everybody understand that? Does that make sense? It's funny. It's a funny way of deciding. Now, of course, you could say another way to break the tie would be runs scored, right? How many runs? Run means a point. 分数, right? Like a point. In baseball, of course, when we run around the bases, we say a run. That means like a point. Okay. So when we say runs scored, it's like how many points did I score? But we say runs allowed, it means how many points were scored against me by other teams. Okay, 数分, yeah, I guess that would be a good way of saying it. Okay, so let's read this together. However, the key tiebreaker is runs allowed. And Taiwan allowed the most runs of any team in the group. Cuba and Italy took the top two spots. Advancing to the quarterfinals in Japan. Okay, so here's the problem. It says here, Taiwanese supporters blame their team's loss on Bros Sports because of the schedule on the last 2 days. Taiwan had to play the Netherlands on Saturday at 7 p.m. and then had to take on Cuba the following day at noon. Okay, so they're saying that they're playing too many games, too short with no time to rest, okay? To take on Cuba. Now, when we say to take on, it means to fight or compete against somebody, right? You can say, but you can take on many things. You can take on a new challenge, right? You can say, I want to take on this new challenge in my life. I want to take on this I don't know, what else do we take on? Project. Yeah, we could take on a new project, okay? So there's many things we can take on. It means to challenge or compete on something, okay? So let's read this. Taiwanese supporters blamed their team's loss on Bros Sports because of the schedule on the last 2 days. Taiwan had to play the Netherlands on Saturday at 7 p.m. Then had to take on Cuba the following day at noon. Okay. Well, you know what blame means, right? Blame, B-L-A-M-E. Blame means when you say it's somebody's fault. You can say, or even you could say, maybe it's something to do with yourself. You can say, why did you fail the test? You can say, well, I blamed it on the lack of sleep. I didn't sleep enough. Or why did you forget to do that? Oh, I blamed it on, I have too many things going on. There's too much work. I can't remember that. Okay. Or you can blame him for something. It means whose fault is it? Or why did something happen? So they blame their team's loss. Now when we were reading this, I was thinking about this. The word schedule, that's how we normally say it. But if you go to England, Ingwo, or any British, Australia, how do they say that word? They say schedule. Okay. So if you hear a British person, like an Australian or British person, and you hear them saying schedule, it doesn't mean they're saying it wrong. That's the way they say it. But in American English, we always say schedule with a K. So why don't we say the British way once? Schedule. Yeah. So if you feel like being British, you can say it that way. Yeah. So yeah. Okay. Let's just read one more paragraph, and then that'll be it for today. Okay. Over the past week, supporters complained online that Taiwan lost because they did not get enough sleep before playing against a well-rested Cuba, who did not have a game on Saturday. Okay. Actually, let's read the second paragraph too, because that's interesting. People also objected to high ticket prices, merchandise defects, and delivery problems, there being too few entry and exit gates at the games, and a lack of safety controls, among other issues. So people are angry about various things. Now, they complained that Taiwan said they did not get enough sleep against a well-rested. Of course, well-rested becomes a 形容词. Okay. I would agree. If you play a game at 7 p.m., and then the next day at lunch you have another game, that's a very short time to rest. That's less than 24 hours. Okay. So Cuba is well rested. And then it says people objected to. Now, objected to means you are against something. You object to their actions. You object to this means I do not like that. So they objected to what? High ticket prices. The tickets were expensive. Merchandise defects. Now, what's merchandise mean? It's products, goods, right? But when we talk about a special event like this, like a sports day, right? You can buy their their shirts that say brothers or 兄弟 on them. You can buy their caps. You can buy their cups. You can buy. That's called the team merchandise. Now, if you, when I was a kid, or I shouldn't say when I was a kid, when I was a little bit younger, I used to go to a lot of concerts. Just like a few days ago, Blackpink played in Kaohsiung, right? I'm sure they have their own merchandise. You can buy their T-shirts. You can buy their, and that's called merchandise. And for short, often if you want to shorten that, they say merch. So if someone says, right now we're offering new merch to our fans, okay? That means their merchandise, they're special products, okay? So they say the merchandise had defects. It means there was something wrong with it, Sometimes if you buy a product and there's a defect, it's broken, it doesn't work, or there's something wrong with it, it's defective. So if you want to turn that into a 形容词, we say defective, defective, okay? So why don't we say together, defects, defects, and then defective, defective. Right, so if you go to a Jialafu or somewhere and you buy a product and then you take it home and it doesn't work, then of course you take it back and you say, sorry, this is defective. I want to return it, okay? So defective, and they also had delivery problems, delivering this merchandise, okay? Then there were too few entry and exit gates, 出入口, and there was a lack of safety control. So people are complaining about many different things. Okay, so let's read this. Over the past week, supporters complained online that Taiwan lost because they did not get enough sleep before playing against a well-rested Cuba who did not have a game on Saturday. People also objected to high ticket prices, merchandise defects, and delivery problems. There being too few entry and exit gates at the games, let's say it again, entry and exit gates at the games, and a lack of safety controls, among other issues. Right, so they're saying there's also other problems, other issues that they're complaining about. Anyhow, I thought everything was pretty cool. But I would agree that having less than 24 hours between games is very, very difficult for any team. So, okay, well, that's all we have time for today. So we'll look forward to seeing you next time, which is when? I forget. When is it? April 6th. Okay. Oh, is it? Is it April 6th? Okay, right. Okay, so we'll see you then. Thank you.